We are here today to chat with one of our wonderful artists, Anna Zanic. I am Elise Vernon. I am the gallery director here at Olson-Larsen Galleries.
I'm Susan Watts. I'm the owner.
And I'm just going to give a quick introduction, tell you a little bit about Anna, and then we're going to kind of go through a few questions, a little chit chat back and forth between us and Anna. And then towards the end, we'll open it up to audience questions, and then we'll wrap it up. Thank you, first of all, for everybody joining us, and thank you, Anna, for being here. We appreciate you very much. Okay, we first showed Anna's vivid watercolors in 2021 for an exhibition that we did called Dreamland. We included Anna's work because of its fluid, ethereal, and meditative qualities. You can see some of this behind us. Anna exhibits her work internationally in solo and group shows. She's worked in a number, has worked in a number of public and private collections, including the University of Iowa hospitals and clinics. And most recently, she completed a major commission for the Mayo Clinic's Dwan Family Center in Jacksonville, which houses the first ion therapy program in the Western Hemisphere. And that treats advanced and resistant forms of cancer. So art is definitely healing. We've said that time and time again. Anna received her Master of Fine Art and Art Education degrees from the Academy of Fine Arts at the University of Zagreb in Croatia. And she is joining us today in her studio in Geneva, Illinois. So thank you, Anna, for being with us.
Thank you, Elise. Thank you, Susan. Thank you, everyone who is joining us today. And I'm really thrilled to be able to participate in our uh, chat, dialogue, interview, whatever you want to call it. I would like at first to say that I'm so grateful to you, Olson-Larsen Gallery.
Mhm.
I think you are an amazing team. And your professionalism is just wonderful. Like from, the way you frame the work, the selection of the frames when you frame the work, the space itself, everything, I'm just so happy to be part of your gallery. So that's the first thing that I wanted to put out there because I think
Thank
it's
you.
important. Second,
That makes us feel good.
it's true. So
Yeah.
I have to say it. I want to share it because it's true. So, and then where do you want me to start? Because I can start just about any place, but what would be the best thing to start with? Uh,
Maybe the beginning.
maybe,
What got you started as an artist?
yes, maybe the beginning. So, the beginning would be kind of, in my case, I think, very natural and organic thing. I have a great deal of professional visual artists in the family, and they both come from my father's and mother's side. So my mom's sister, her only sister, was a professional painter. She graduated from the same Academy of Fine Arts as I did. Her husband was a sculptor. My father's aunt was a painter who graduated from the same Academy of Fine Arts in Zagreb, in Croatia, where I did. Croatia is a very small country. We don't have many art schools.
Yeah.
So it's funny. I have this big like monograph, like a heavy book. I was going through it yesterday that shows old images and photos of the Academy of Fine Arts, from like 120 years ago. Uh, and I can see my, oh, this is Aunt Katarina, this is, so it's kind of funny. Um, I never thought of it that way, but now as I'm getting older, it's becoming more interesting to me. So I would say, though my parents and my sister have actually science degrees. My parents have both math degrees. My sister has physics degree. My husband has a physics degree as well. So they're all scientists. the outer circle of the family is kind of like all artists. So I feel that I leaned towards that artistic. I had those artistic inclinations and interests, and I was very um, playful, creative. I loved singing, I loved dancing, and I always made things. I always made things. So that was a natural thing for me. So even though my parents were scientists, for them it was not a strange thing because they had so many very close relatives who were artists. So I always felt very supported. I remember that my dad, for almost every birthday, would buy me some new kind of art supplies. Every year he would just show up with something new because he knew that I would really appreciate that the most. And then as I was getting older, when I was an early teenager, he would buy me more serious professional art supplies because he not that he necessarily wanted me to go to art school. And I remember when I said, well, I think I'm going to go to art school, that they were kind of like, huh. What are how are you going to support yourself as an artist? It's this like stereotypical fear.
Hmm.
But uh, but they did, but they were not surprised, and I think they were very supportive. So I think my experience was very organic and natural of just having this opportunity, and also to just be really surrounded with art on a daily basis. Like our house had paintings from my relatives, and I would get to visit their studios, and they all had their own studios and did different things, oil paint or sculpture or printmaking. So I did get to see that kind of hands-on, and it was part of our life. It was a part of our environment, I would say.
Hmm.
Um, I think another thing that's interesting, that I also am starting to think about it more in the past few years, is that I too have a lot of scientific interest in me. I always, since it was since my parents, always talked about math, and my sister always did things that were connected with science. I kind of felt that I was on the opposite side of all of that, or looking from the outside. I didn't participate in solving their math problems. That was totally not interesting to me. Um, but I was extremely drawn to nature and biology and plants and marine life. So we would spend vacations on the Croatian Adriatic coast, and I thought I was gonna grow gills and like I would not leave the water. I was just there diving and getting a. I found seashells the other day in a box because I was just like that was what I wanted to do all the time. And so I actually enrolled in biology majoring high school, where I had a lot of biology and chemistry courses and classes. So I do think that there's a lot of it that is scientific uh, in me too. It's just that the art was stronger. So there you have it.
Well, I think that's an interesting correlation too, because I think at least what I have observed from a lot of your work is that there's a methodology to it. There's,
Mhm.
having a question and finding an answer and going through a very specific process to find that and what it means and documenting the journey along the way.
I agree, and I feel that abstract art and intuitive work, because I feel that a lot of the basis of what I do and what I'm interested in is real has a lot to do with intuition and improvisation and just this gut feeling that you have. And I love that. I love fostering the spontaneity. I love emotional part of art, and that's more interesting to me than any defined answer. The journey is what it's all about. But I have to say that like during the journey, and I prepared I have like I just wanted to show this because I don't usually get to show things. So like along the journey,
Yeah.
there's a lot of like you said, documenting
Yeah.
and writing down and going back and depending on my mood, which is very important to me to follow my current you know mood. Let's put it that way. I will have some kind of document of where I was and which colors I
Mhm.
was drawn to, and I do like when I make mix that I love, or like a combination or a palette of few colors, I will I will record it. I will write down um, what I was doing, because I do want to be able to have control. I think it's very much. I would describe it as being similar to music. Like music that's very improvisational, jazz music. You cannot get to that level. You cannot do it without the knowledge and the structure and the repetition. And it's a variation on a theme, but there is a very deep, real logic to it, behind it. There's like this uh, weaving of things that are not chaotic. They're spontaneous, but they're not chaotic. They're not, there's no chaos. I would put it that way. Yeah.
So can I ask you, I think this is maybe going to be along the lines of what you're talking about. So in some of your work there, like in this one, there are these patterns, very kind of, they're so much different than the spontaneity of the watercolor. You have these little hash marks. So if you could talk a little bit about those.
Yes. Uh, I I feel that in all the work that I do, I'm really drawn to this duality of those two things. And I often will say that to me, that process and then the result are just like remind me of life itself, where we all try to control many things in our life in order to do anything. We have our schedules and we need to have our schedules in order to go through our day, right? But I feel that I'm really interested in this balance of letting go and control, of kind of not only controlling the process and not completely letting go. So it's kind of like this really fine balance. There's this tension about it. And it's like, I don't know, I've never surfed, so I'm not going to say that I know what I'm talking about when I say this, but I always imagine, a surfer on a board and the wave is the wave is growing taller, and you just kind of you have to maneuver this situation. You have to both go with the flow, but you also have to be very much in control in order not to crash. So there's something about that feeling that I usually am excited about when I work. I'm excited about whether I'm going to achieve this balance of control and letting go. And sometimes I don't. But as I'm older, I feel, or like I'm not going to say as I'm older, as I'm more wise and mature, yeah, I have more experience. So I'm more confident about pieces that are not successful in a way that I don't dwell. So if something did not go the way I liked, I will abandon the work and I
Mhm.
will usually tear it apart, which is really satisfying with work on paper. Uh,
Mhm.
and not in any kind of anger, but kind of in a sense of deliberate decision that I would not put my name under this. I would not put my hand in fire for this piece. So at that point, I'm fine with letting go. And it feels very good. It feels very good.
Mhm.
Um, yeah, so I feel, when I was younger, I probably didn't do it as much, but now I recognize quickly where a piece, if it achieved what I like, if it gives me a certain feeling, I don't know where it should go. I never, I don't have a preconceived plan what the piece is going to look like, nor do I have this picture in my head. it absolutely, there's no picture whatsoever. It just happens as a dialogue with the material as I'm working.
Mhm. So how would you guide or recommend that other artists or younger artists especially get to that point of kind of knowing?
With a lot of repetition, with sticking with it.
Mm.
And if it's hard, if you don't, if you get tired, then I'm not certain that's the right thing for you. Because like I don't want to sound harsh, but for me it just never was really a choice. You know, when I was in art school, I did have friends who were very talented, but you know, they would be kind of like, I'm not sure if I want to do this. And for me, it never was about a decision if I want to do it. It was more like a necessity. I feel like even when I have to travel for a little while, it becomes very impractical because I have to, you know, I'm thinking, what can I pack that is not going to be too many things that I can still do some kind of artwork. And then, and we're going to talk about this because, you know, like the sketchbooks
Mhm.
are something that really is helpful because I do feel that it's really hard not to create. But you said, what would I tell young artists? I think repetition is very interesting, and it inevitably it will take you different paths. It's not like you know, you're gonna just make the same work over and over again, but kind of really like, you know, learning an instrument or anything that you want to do seriously or professionally. It has to do with being dedicated and doing it for a quite a long time, I think, um, in order to have um, quality control. You know, like I said with my paintings, when I make something that I'm not, that I'm dissatisfied with, and I know this is not a successful piece, in order to have that feeling and certainty about your feeling, you have to spend a very long period of time to get there, I think. Otherwise, you don't have this critical thinking about, you know, you're not sure, is this great or is it okay or is, you know, or is it, I'm not sure.
Mhm.
I, I would say with great certainty that I know which of my pieces are really great and which are maybe mediocre. And maybe, you know, somebody would disagree with me, but I'm at a point in my life where I just am very confident about how I feel about my own work. I think it's really important
Mhm.
to have that feeling.
So, for example, the pieces that we have here in the gallery right now,
Absolutely.
the Totem series. So,
Absolutely love those pieces.
yeah, they're wonderful. So, for people who are not familiar, it's four individual sheets of paper that make up one image, essentially. So, when you're talking about kind of the confidence of your mark making and just the process and everything, is there a point in one of these, since it's kind of multi-stage, you're like, oh no, this is not going well, but I have these other three panels that are already, on their way or done, and this last one is not working. Like, what shift do you make at that point?
Um, I don't, even those three kind of like I think I have maybe 12 of those big personal totems that are made of four pieces, maybe 15. So I also kind of made them, I start making a series always. Something draws me, you know, to specific palette or shape, or in this case, this was very interesting to me. So I will just go on and on until I get uh, tired or disinterested in that particular thing. But I will do always a variation on a theme. So it is kind of musical, I would say, in a way for me.
Mhm.
Uh, but I don't, you know, I didn't make those three as a triptych or imagine them beforehand, and then have to abandon them. I feel that I always create the work and then decide how I'm going to stage it or what I'm going to do with it more than I have a conceptual, thought out idea. I'm afraid it would limit me very much if I did the preconceived plan, almost of any sort, before I started working.
Mhm.
So I usually don't do that. I usually curate after the fact. I would call it that way, if that makes sense, you know.
Mhm. I like, at least for me, I like to shoot first and ask questions later, which
Mhm.
is not a very good tactic in other lives, but I think for artists, uh, I mean, depending on the person and the process, it
Yeah,
makes a lot of sense
it's
to
very.
not overanalyze while
Mhm.
you're in the thick of it and just wait, just wait.
Yeah, that's the way I see it as well. Yeah.
Thanks.
So these, I said I love them because they actually, I've been showing, I've had a chance to show them several times in solo shows, and I didn't say I love them for any promotional reasons. It's just that I really made the story behind those pieces, and I even think I had a video interview where I mentioned about it, talked about the series. So it's, I don't want to, I don't want it to be redundant and just repeat the same thing in each video or interview. But what's interesting with that series is that it started with the pandemic and with my little sketchbooks where I, did a lot of mark making. And I would say that I kind of focused on the mark making even much more. And it was extremely soothing. It was very much like a mindfulness exercise. I feel I became aware how much my artistic process is really helping me mentally to cope. So I started during the pandemic making very small work in sketchbooks because it was just very easy and everything seemed so uncertain. So the marks that are very obsessive, kind of repetitive, just kind of, it was a very soothing thing for me. It was like a little place of, like a little consolation, like every day I could go there. And it was not a big project. It had no pretension. There was no plan. This was just to kind of calm myself. Um, and then from that work, or not, I wouldn't even call it work. It is work, but from that process, I started slowly making a little bit bigger works. I have a piece here. I'm gonna try to bring it closer just for you to see. And then, gradually it grew into the. Okay, let's see if I'm too close. So this was one of the. So this is obviously bigger. This is like 23 by 30
Mhm.
with lots of intricate marks. Um, and then from there, I started the big, like four, that this format, but four pieces
Mhm.
overlapping, and the burn marks were very interesting too. Um, it's what I didn't talk about yet, and I think it's really important about my work in general. I feel that all my work is connected to two things. It's connected to nature and it's connected to something very personal in my life. So it's either, it's often connected with memories. I had a really, really nice childhood. I'm happy to declare that. So I don't think that I go often to memories of childhood because I'm not happy with the current state of things. It's like in, Marcel Proust's, memories and associations and those like evocative things. You see something where there's a scent and it just pulls you back. And when we're kids, we have very strong visual and sensory impressions. At least that's the case with me. So I do think a lot of things that draw me uh, towards specific palette or something in my work has to do um, with something from my childhood. So the burn marks, yes, the burn marks actually happened during the pandemic, and my son was playing outside with our neighbor, and they played with a magnifying glass and they were trying to get a dry leaf to start a fire with just a magnifying glass in the sunlight. And I remembered the same thing, from my childhood with my dad, who always taught us scientific kind of, things, and looking at the stars and, oh, look at Cassiopeia and whatnot. And so that was a nice memory for me. And I gave Albert, my son, a piece of watercolor paper, and I said, okay, go and try to make, like make a burn mark on this piece of paper. And the mark that it left was very similar to my kind of burnt umber and sepia marks that I always have in my work.
Mhm.
And it was such a connection, it was just like this wonderful magical connection with both my dad and my childhood and now my son. And I thought I really need, I want to try, I'm gonna, and it just happened spontaneously. I had my sketchbook and I and I tried it, and it was beautiful. And I mean, to me, it
Yeah.
was lovely, and I played with it. And so that's how the burn marks happened. Very,
Mm.
on one hand, spontaneously and accidentally, and on the other, for me, there was the story behind it. So.
I also like how somebody who doesn't know that story can also attach their own meaning to it, like, burning something and releasing it and,
Yeah.
Yeah.
letting those bad feelings float away and
Mhm.
things like that. So it can be kind of a catharsis, but also,
Absolutely.
yeah,
Yeah.
I love that. Mm.
I do feel that oftentimes, I appreciate the idea of creating work that is universal. Not only appreciate, I'm really interested in that. And I don't know how universal it really is, because it depends on where you grew up and what culture and what visual information you were brought up with. So it might transpire as, just some stains on paper that are completely meaningless. And I understand that. I'm fine with that too. But I do like the idea that the work can be entered in a universal on a universal level. That it does not, like you said, need this narrative. I mean, it adds, I think, to it. If you know a narrative, I'm usually surprised when I find a narrative that I knew nothing of. If I didn't know personally the artist, and then I come to the artist talk and hear them talk, it really does enrich my experience of the work.
Mhm.
But I do also want this feeling that the work can be approached without the narrative. I don't want to I don't want to convince people of anything. I do not want to justify myself either. I do want a sense of the work speaking for itself, and like giving the viewer an opportunity to enter it on their own terms.
Yeah.
Hmm.
So we've talked about kind of your beginnings as an artist and your inspiration, being very close to nature and the ocean and being in the water. And I think that's a good kind of segue to these little ceramic forms that you've begun to make. So tell us about those.
So I did, again, it's going to be like connection to my childhood, really, this interest in ceramics. As the house where my grandparents lived, our family house that still stands, is very old, and it's kind of uh, thinking of it and dreaming about it sometimes here on the other side of the planet. It's a very strange feeling to remember things in the childhood and know the house is still there, but my grandparents are no longer there, my dad is not there, and the house is alone and lonely. But so in that house I spent weekends usually at my grandparents, and nearby on the same street there was a potter, like it was a potter's shop with lots of beautiful earthenware that was functional. It was not glazed, and it was not very decorative. It was more functional. It was like in this terracotta, beautiful color. And the entire front yard, was covered with with those functional pieces that I could see every day when I was there. And so I really loved making things, and I was very interested in, how can somebody make something, it's basically mud, how can you create this out of soil?
Yeah.
It was fascinating to me. So I would always ask my grandmother to take me there, and she would buy me a piece of, or like was given a piece of clay for me to play with. I really distinctly remember that as something very special that I was excited about. Um, so I remember in elementary school too that I was part of this like little ceramic group. My elementary art teacher, elementary school art teacher, she was a ceramicist. She was an artist. I mean, she was a teacher too, but she was a ceramicist. So she had founded Little Ceramicists or something like that was the name that I was a part of. Um, and then much later on, because I studied painting, I did not study ceramics. Much later, when I moved to the States, I did take some ceramics classes in Austin at the museum of Austin Art Museum, because I really was drawn to it and I loved it. And then when my older one was born, I started a series with small ceramic like vessels, like bowls, I would say, that I really wanted to recreate that sense of home while making them, of that picture of the yard covered. And these had nothing to do visually with the work at the potter's shop. It's just like the idea of accumulated pieces together was what I was kind of making. And then I would say maybe 2, 3 years ago, I started again. I would take breaks with ceramics because I don't have a ceramics studio. I paint in a studio at home and it's watercolor. So those two things don't regret together because obviously clay is very, very dusty and watercolor requires quite pristine paper and clean environment. So it's interesting. It's kind of balancing those two. But yeah, but now I'm able to. I have a membership at a local art ceramics uh, organization where I can fire the work, and so I have been really drawn to creating these small ceramic pieces that I titled the series Reef Pods. And they're again kind of like, to me, they remind me of things that I've seen in water as a child. And I used to really I would, keep journals of what I found. This location, this date, such and such, I saw this fish, and I would really. So I don't know. Maybe I should have been a biologist. I'm not sure, but but yeah, something drew me to start really making these works. They're very intimate in scale, which I'm really drawn to always, I have to say. I'm drawn to work that's intimate. I like that. Even when I do really large scale work, the marks are always very small and intricate. I'm not as interested in work that's grandiose and loud. Like I'm not interested in work where you enter a room and and it just like you're in shock. I mean, hopefully you're in shock, somebody, when you see the work, but not in a way that it's loud. I want it to be subtle. That's important to me. So yeah, so I started making these really small pieces, and again, I'm just doing a variation on a theme and accumulating a lot. And I have had a lot of interest in these, and people really are interested in acquiring them. And I find myself uh, saying, I'm not ready yet because, like I said, this, quality control is important to me. So I cannot release the work before I feel that it's ready. So we'll see where it gets me. I would love to hopefully at some point to release that work into the world too,
Yeah.
because I do feel the artists, we cannot hold on to the work, you know. We can make a decision whether we're satisfied and keep it and put our name on it, and or destroy it. But we once it's there, it's no longer ours, you know.
Mhm.
It's That's how I feel, at least. So
Yeah, it seems kind of strange to be so attached to this object that you put so much time and effort into, and then just release it into the world, like, when
that
your kid starts driving, like, oh,
is.
you have to let go a little bit. It's hard.
Yes. It's fun, and it's funny, I would say I do not have that feeling at all with the watercolor work, because I have been working with watercolor continuously for 30 years.
Mhm.
So I will have pieces that I'm very much attached to. Those end up in my flat files. They don't go anywhere. You know, sometimes they don't even go to my exhibitions. Very few. There are very few pieces like that, but I know, when I just recognize a piece that I'm absolutely confident this is it, I do keep it
Yeah.
for my children, not for fame and poster, not for, the universe or
Yeah.
whatever. But I am like, I believe in this work. I still want to um, keep it. But I don't have many of those. I mean, that I'm so attached to. Usually, I'm very fine with letting go.
Yeah.
So.
So before we open it up to questions, I just have one more question. What type of media do you consume when you need a break? So do you go to art museums? Like what type of books or shows or, things like that, do you like to
I
avoid?
I absolutely love the outdoors. Sometimes it's becoming a little bit difficult for me now. Each year, progressively, living in the Midwest is a little bit challenging because the winters are very strong and very long, and it can be dark. So, and I am a person who requires light. If I wake up and I see the sun is shining, this is it. Like, I don't, I don't need anything else. If I'm sick or something, my kids are unhappy, I'm like, the sun is shining, I'm fine. But the dark is a challenge. So I feel that what was the question? I don't want to meander, because I really, you said, what do I consume? So
Yeah.
yeah, I wanted to say I do go on walks every day. There's a beautiful prairie trail nearby where I live. And my neighborhood is really very walkable. It's beautiful. People have beautiful trees and plants when the spring comes. So I can meander in my neighborhood for quite a while. I do go on walks every day. I love dancing. So I go to fitness dance classes now about 3 to 4 times a week, and that is a place where I just completely let go. I just enjoy the movement and the music, and nothing else can um, inhabit the mind during that time. And um, and and plants, I feel, plants are a big thing for me. I have lots of indoor plants. I don't have a huge garden, but I do have few plants that make me happy when the spring comes, and just observing the plants, that's a big thing for me. And reading, would say, is a big one. I have to say that I'm a little bit traditional, I guess, in that way, because I end up always reading the classics. I always, I recently discovered Chimamanda Ngozi Adichie. I'm not sure if I pronounced her name correctly. She's a Nigerian born writer, and I absolutely fell in love with her writing. But other than that, and she's a contemporary writer. But other than that, I go back to, I have my favorites: Virginia Woolf and Oscar Wilde and Marcel Proust and Dostoevsky and Turgenev. So I do usually read classics. And now I'm reading short stories by Chekhov. And when I say reading, I'm actually not reading. I'm listening to audiobooks on my walks. So I
Yeah.
combine those two. So
Nice.
those things would be my inspirations, I would say, where I don't think about anything. I think
Yeah,
about that.
I love it. Yeah, I think it's important to have those outlets, those moments
Mhm.
for yourself. So if anybody has questions for Anna, you can put it in the chat or um, take yourself off of mute and ask away.
I have a question. First of all, thank you for this lively conversation. It's delightful to hear to your, about your practice. And you mentioned you always inspired by nature. Does this inspiration affect your color when you choose your colors for a specific series? For example, if in the winter you may choose like a muted colors, in the summertime like a more bright, is there any
Yeah.
connection to that?
I would say there is. It's not a conscious connection, but I then, going back and looking at my decisions, they are very much affected. There, I do react to things. I do have a tendency to be moved by something and then react, and then that pulls me in. So that is my process. So yeah, absolutely. I actually often find that I will work with green more during winter times. So it's maybe, kind of not uh, analogous to, it's not winter outside and I'm going to have muted colors. It's actually I lack those greens, and so I will get them through the process. But yeah, it does absolutely it's connected. It is connected. Yeah.
Mhm.
Mhm.
Thanks.
Thank you.
I have a question. First of all, thank you for sharing so much about yourself and your process and your work. It's been very lovely to put a face to the creator, and I've been following your work for quite a while. So, well, since the pandemic.
Well, that's
Um,
thank you.
yeah. So I'm really curious about the mark making that you make in your paintings and in the clay. What you might be thinking about when you're making those little scratches, and also technical, the clay, what the little green, how it feels like the green is suspended on the clay bodies.
Mhm, mhm.
Are you firing that upside down to get that like almost a drip?
So I'm gonna hold a piece so then we can so that you can. Um, I want to make sure that I'm answering that it has to
Where
do.
you'd have like the little bits of bright green blobs on
Not the
the
blobs. The blobs, I will show you.
yeah,
I think I know what you mean. The blobs.
yeah.
So the blobs are a different. They're a specific kind of glaze. They're called gloop glaze, and it's a type of glaze that stays suspended. So,
Okay.
and it does different things. So if you put it over a glossy glaze, it will drip. However, if you put it, I don't have a piece here as an example, but if you put it on an area that is not glazed or that is underglazed, but or even if it's glazed with a matte glaze, it will stick out. It will keep its shape. It will not drip.
I
So
was like, how did
it,
she do that? Wow, it's magic.
it's not mad. I mean, I want it to feel like magic. That is the whole idea, but it's not. It's just experience. It's kind of like you have to experiment a lot, and the experimental phase is often disappointing. I will come to a place where I fire them, and I will talk with people who are firing their things, and somebody asks me, "Oh, how are you happy with your pieces?" And I'm like, "I don't like any of them." And they look at me completely confused. And I said, "But that's a great thing. I know exactly what I'm not going to do next time." Like I am going through this process and I will recognize when it feels great. So some pieces I'm happy about, and a lot of them I know that's not it. So that's the way. for me to learn. Right. Yeah.
And
Hello, Maria.
the mark making, the scratching.
Yeah. I somehow find it very soothing. I think I one time at a solo show there was a book of opinion, like of impressions that you could write in, and somebody wrote something interesting. They said that the visiting my exhibition taught them a lot about their personality because the little squiggles really irritated them. Yes, they're like, I guess I like order and this is very irritating. And I was completely perplexed. I thought, well, maybe you could have kept that to yourself. Like, I'm not sure if it helped you, but it sure didn't, make my day reading it. But, people, this isn't one thing which is very true. I think about art in general, being an artist, is you have to accept that you, on some level, are both making it for yourself primarily. You're true to yourself, and you're making it to the world. You're releasing it to the world. And releasing it to the world means anyone can feel or think or say whatever they want. And so you just have to let go and accept all of that. That's, I think, any form of art, musicians, or dancers, or any form of performance is bound to be evaluated or criticized. And I think it's important um, to be okay with it. It's difficult, but I think it's important.
So we have a question from Hector in the chat. What
Hello,
can-
Hector. Nice to meet you. Hi.
He says, what can you tell us about your photos and videos of the movement of elements in nature, like flowers or plants blowing in the wind?
Yes. So thank you for asking that. I love that because it's not related to the work itself. It's related to me. But then it is related to the work because this is usually when I go on my walks, which I said I do walk a lot. And I like walking somewhere where I like walking in my neighborhood, but I will eventually meet my neighbors. There are several, especially elderly neighbors, that I love talking with. And so if I see them, we're like, oh, hello, Mr. Bill. If he ever hears it, he will know. Uh, so we love those conversations, but then I end up, my walk becomes much shorter because we stop and we talk. So when I go to that area where the prairie trail is, where usually I don't meet people that I know, and it's very solitary kind of, I do get to see plants and milkweed and all kinds of beautiful grasses, and I cannot, and even in my backyard I cannot help but just be completely moved by nature. And then I record it and I usually post it, and I'm thinking, well, other people go on walks and see all those things, and why am I even posting this? But it's just like something beautiful. um, and I feel it's almost like a visual journal to myself because I can go back and those stories, I go back and I go through them, and they're like little videos that are just beautiful. I love the beauty of nature. There's something really consoling about it. So I don't know if this is a good answer.
No, it is, but it's inspiring to you, right?
It's
Very
very
inspiring. Yes.
inspiring. It's very inspiring. When I go on walks with my family, Um, only my mom, but she lives in Croatia, so I don't get to spend a lot of time with her at all. But when I go on walks or like family trips or vacations with my family, I will try to communicate and show them all of those things that I see. And I know I cannot help it, but I know that they will, after the second, I don't know, piece of moss or a leaf or something, say, okay, we've established that, the ginkgo leaf is a gorgeous leaf, and we've talked about this before, because they kind of acknowledged it. Yes, it's lovely. We can move on. And I can't move on. If I see something magnificent, visually beautiful, and it actually almost always has to do with nature. Because Alice, you said, do I go to museums? And like for me, nature is really what I look at the most for everything, for happiness, beauty, inspiration, a sense of like solace. You know, like for happiness, basically. Yeah.
Yeah.
Nature for me is like an external thing, but you make magic when you brought it into you.
Mhm.
Oh, thank you.
So your art, I mean, is amazing. You know, I'm a big fan.
Oh, I know. I'm so like it's so amazing to see, a few faces that I know you've been with me for a while, and that is, I'm not going to say an artist does it for like I think every artist hopes that somewhere um on some other side in the universe, somewhere, somebody feels the resonance. When I make a piece that I'm happy about, it's not my goal to make someone feel something about it, but the idea that it somehow does obviously makes me extremely happy. So thank you for appreciating my work. It does really make a big difference. um, it's a confirmation of kind of, okay, I this justifies the work. It's not just self-indulgent. I'm not just making myself happy. If I'm also touching somebody else and it, brings them some sort of excitement, then I couldn't be happier.
Thank you, Anna.
Thank you.
May I take the next question? Hi, Anna.
Hi, Maria.
Very nice to see you,
You
to talk
too.
to you live. Because yes, I think I'm one of those people to whom you really connect.
Yeah.
And manage to communicate a lot, over the past few years. So thank you very much.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much.
And I have a question. Maybe it's a little bit more technical, but
Sure.
your work, I think we all agree it's amazing. And I always wonder when you start, you have a few series, and when you start the series, what comes first? Do you think about a certain palette, a color, and then you go and then you follow your intuition, and you said, actually it becomes a new thing, a new kind of body of work of itself, or you still give it a bit of thought before you start?
I feel that it very much has to do with color for me as an initial starting point. And some of my work is more muted. For instance, the work that is in the Olson-Larsen gallery right now, the personal totem. A lot of those pieces are very earthy and kind of muted, like smoky or lichen or gray palette or light indigo. So they're not vivid colors, but it's still color. It's that it has a very specific mood that is broad, and I feel that those tiny nuances of color are the first initial thing that starts my each new series. I will be pulled in by color, and then it takes kind of a life of its own. And I feel, that there's certain variation on a theme in all my work. I always work, I'm not going to say always because I want to keep it open for the future, who knows, but I don't see myself as ever doing anything very rectangular. I always recognize there are oval shapes and very rounded edges, and circle, not necessarily a perfect circle, but something that is very um, oval, spherical, um, that is extremely interesting to me and appealing because I see those forms in nature. And if you think about the planets or the, Earth, it all kind of makes sense. Or the seeds, it's all kind of an oval or a circle or a sphere. So it's not intentional quite, but when I look at my own work, I do see this consistent repetition of those shapes that I'm just drawn to. So I would say color changes my series. The color pulls me in, and then it's all kind of a variation on a theme.
All right. Thank you, everybody. Thanks. Wonderful questions. We appreciate the conversation again, Anna, and everybody for joining us. So I think we'll wrap up here. And I just want to let everybody know that this exhibition of Anna's work will be up through the first week of April in the gallery and always online, of course. So you can subscribe to our newsletter, go to olsonlarsen.com, and you'll receive exhibition updates and different news from us. And also go to Anna's website. It sounds like all of you are familiar with her work and Instagram and website anyway, so just keep going back. Um, and then I wanted to also remind folks that we here at the gallery, we do a lot more than just exhibitions. We do the artist talks like this, but we also do a lot of consultations. Anna mentioned our framing. We have a custom frame
Amazing,
shop.
amazing framing, amazing.
Thank you. And especially work like this, you see it online or you see it on the gallery walls, but it is very different in your space. So we will bring everything that you want to see out to your space and we'll hang it on the wall. You can live with it before you buy, try before you buy. So anyway, thank you again. And this recording will be up on the gallery's YouTube page shortly. So if you want to revisit the conversation, you can come back anytime. All right. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks.